Yes, ma'am.
Hmm?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
I hope my screen is visible to all now. Sure. I'm now. Okay. Now, since we had started with duality, okay, thank you. Since we had started with duality the other day, okay, and we had seen that the same problem can be interpreted, or we can look at the similar same problem with two different perspectives. So one we had called as primal and the other we call as dual. Okay. Now this particular concept was important because of its economic significance, because it's like we need not be interested only in maximizing the profits. We also have to see the cost of resources, because whenever we have a real life situation, say for example, even if we are talking of manufacturing things, so obviously when you are manufacturing things, you are investing your resources, and when you are investing your resources, there is a cost involved. Based on this cost, we talk of the revenues because they are all interlinked. Okay, we talk of the profits, we talk of the revenues. So if we are completely interested only in maximizing the revenues and we do not consider costs at all, that also will not give a very clear picture of the situation which we are studying right now. Okay, so that is why dual plays an important role here. And because of this importance, the theory of duality gradually grew up, because the economists, they wanted answers in the other aspects also. So due to which the mathematicians, they remodeled the thing, they interpreted the variables in a different manner. Okay, so as I was saying, we before we move over to the theorems and how we solve and how we find the solutions, we first of all must know how the variables and how the constraints are related in terms of primal and dual. Okay, now I think the other day I gave you a brief introduction of this. Say, like we said that if the objective in the primal is maximization, then the objective in the dual becomes that of minimization. Okay, so you can note down all these points because they will be required when we are, first solving the problems. And as I said the other day also, the best part about it is you do not have to solve both the problems to get the solutions. Even if you solve only one problem, that means you solve the primal, you can get the solutions of the dual from the optimal table of the primal. And depending upon the nature of solution of the primals, we can actually make a statement, we can conclude about the nature of the solutions of the dual as well. Okay, so for that proper theory has been developed. We have theorems where we can interpret, if the problem ends, if the primal ends up in this kind of a solution, then how will the dual end up. Okay, so that is why all these things are important. Now, since you have already solved the problems using simplex method, so you must have realized that if you have more number of variables, the number of iterations do not matter much, because ultimately it is dependent upon the number of constraints. So sometimes, it becomes easier to solve the dual than the primal. So this particular notion gives us a flexibility whether we are solving the primal or we are solving the dual. Okay, so that means given any problem, we must be able to write its dual properly first. Okay. So like in the problem, if the objective is maximization, in the dual, it will that be of minimization. Similarly, if you have j number of variables in the primal, that means your variables are xj. Then in the dual, you will have j constraints. So depending upon how many variables you have in the primal, you have those many number of constraints in the dual. Similarly, if you have, say, um, j variables, then j constraints, then I constraints here. Okay. So like in this, everywhere we have seen that your j varies from 1 to n and your I varies from 1 to m. So I constraints will make I variables here. Okay, so the number of constraints in the primal will be equal to the number of variables in the dual. Okay, now this was what we did the other way around, in the last class also. Now comes upon the sign of the constraints. So if you have less than or equal to type constraints in the primal, they become more than or equal to type constraints in the dual. Okay, so that is why, the best thing is if you are writing the dual. Now I'm speaking from examination point of view also. So in the exam, it could be asked that you are given a problem, you are asked to write the dual, number one. Number two, solve the primal and interpret the solution of the dual. Okay, so that means given a primal, we must be able to write the dual first properly. Okay, so as I said, the best thing is convert the primal into maximization less than or equal to types, and accordingly it will be minimization more than or equal to types. Then we see which constraint was which type, and then we can interpret, we can change accordingly. Okay, similarly, if I have a constraint, some constraint I, which is of equality sign in the primal. Okay, see, mind you, the constraints in the primal correspond to the variables in the dual. Okay, so if I have some constraint of equality sign, that means some decision in the dual has to be made regarding the corresponding variable. Say, supposing I have a primal that has, say, 4 constraints, out of which constraint number 3 is equality type. See, if I have 4 constraints in the primal, that means I have 4 variables in the dual. Say, 4 constraints in the primal become y1, y2, y3, y4 as the variables in the dual. Okay. Now, if the third constraint is equality type, that means some decision has to be taken about the third variable in the dual. Okay, and the rule says that if the constraint I is equality type, then here it will be the variable. So it says that variable I would be unrestricted in sign. Is that okay? So that means equality constraint in the primal corresponds to an unrestricted variable in the dual. Similarly, if I say variable j is unrestricted in sign here. Okay. Now, the variables in the primal correspond to the constraints in the dual. So similarly here, what will happen is that the constraint j will be equality types. Okay. So the moment you have an equality constraint, then you have the corresponding variable either in the primal or in the dual as unrestricted in sign. Okay. So less than or equal to type constraint become more than or equal to, and similarly, if you have a variable unrestricted in sign, it becomes exactly equal to constant. Okay. So these are the rules that we normally take care while writing the dual. Like for example, say supposing I'll take a simpler problem first, and then we'll move over to more complex problems where we have things like that. Say, for example, supposing you have to write the dual of, say, maximize z equal to x1 minus x2 plus 3x3 subject to the constraints x1 plus x2 plus x3 less than or equal to 10, 2x1 minus x3 less than or equal to 2, 2x1 minus 2x2 minus 3x3 less than or equal to 6, x1, x2, x3 more than or equal to 0. Okay, now this is the problem which is given to us. I'll take this problem as the primal or the P. I mean, you can call it problem P also. Okay, now we have to write the dual for this. Okay, so writing the dual, as I said, best thing is first just look at your objective function. It is maximization. Just verify that all your constraints are less than or equal to type. They're already there here. Okay. So, and moreover, all the variables are non-negative here. So no issues. It's a direct problem, right? So that means if I follow the rules that I just gave above, my dual, instead of a maximization objective, now it will have a minimization objective, right? And small z will get changed to say capital Z because I'm now writing the dual equal to. Now see, this primal has three variables, okay, x1, x2, x3, and three constraints. Now, because there are three constraints, that is why my dual will also have three variables. See, mind you, corresponding to the first constraint, I'll call my variable as y1. Corresponding to the second, it will be y2. Corresponding to the third, it will be y3. So these right-hand sides of the primal are going to define the coefficients in the objective function of the dual. यही बोला था ना उस दिन भी हमने यही करा था. Okay, so that is why your dual will now become minimize z equal to, now this will be what, 10y1 plus 2y2 plus 6y3. Is that okay? Subject to, now I have to write the constraints. Now mind you, the coefficients in the primal are going to define the right hand sides of the object of the constraints in the dual. Okay, so one thing is very clear, because my primal also had three variables, therefore my dual is going to have three constraints only. Okay, and the right hand sides of these three constraints are going to be 1, -1, 3, because they are the coefficients here, right? Since in the primal all the constraints were less than or equal to type, so in the dual all the constraints will be more than or equal to types. Okay. Now once you've identified this, now it's not a big deal, because corresponding to each dual variable, you just have to consider the transpose of this matrix A. Okay. So instead of reading it row wise, we are now going to read the matrix column wise. As you can see, the coefficients will be for y1, y2, y3. Okay, so the first constraint will become y1 plus 2y2 plus 2y3. Okay, similarly, the second constraint will be the second column from here. Now, in the second column, as you can see, there is no x2 term in the second constraint. So that means the coefficient of x2 in the primal in the second constraint is actually 0. Okay, so that means the second constraint will be y1 plus 0y2 minus 2y3 more than or equal to -1. And the last constraint will become y1 minus y2 minus 3y3 more than or equal to 3. And since all your, I mean, there was no constraint that was equality here, that means your dual variables, all the dual variables will also be non-negative. So this becomes the dual. Okay, now mind you, we have just written the dual right now. We have not solved it. We are not solving it. Okay, so as you can see, while writing the dual, yes, I can have my B as negative. But when I have to solve it, I have to convert it into a standard form. And for that, all my B's should be positive, non-negative. This we have seen already. So they can be 0 at the most, but definitely more than or equal to 0. So that means while solving, if I have to solve the dual, I'll have to change this constraint so that my problem becomes a standard form, and then you can apply simplex method to solve this. Is this clear? बोलो.
मैम ये जो हमने कॉन्स्टेंट्स लिखे हैं ये एक बार थोड़ा सा दोबारा बता दीजिए.
क्या चीज बेटा, एक बार फिर से बोलो, तुम्हारी आवाज बीच में कट रही थी. क्या फिर से बताऊं?
मैम ये कॉन्स्टेंट्स हमने कैसे लिखे हैं ड्यूल वाले?
जो ऊपर वाला मैट्रिक्स है ना, जो प्राइमल के कॉन्स्ट्रेंट्स हैं, ये जो तुम्हारा ये प्राइमल के कॉन्स्ट्रेंट्स है ना, इसका मैट्रिक्स ए बन रहा है ना, राइट? तो ये क्या बन रहा है? 1 1 1 2 0 -1 2 -2 -3. ठीक है ना? अब डुअल में ये ए ट्रांसपोज होगा.
ओके मैम.
ओके, तो जो कोफिशिएंट्स हैं इनको कॉलम वाइज पढ़ लो, मतलब फर्स्ट कॉन्स्ट्रेंट के लिए जो कोफिशिएंट्स आएंगे वो फर्स्ट कॉलम से आएंगे. ओके
ओके मैम. यस मैम.
Okay. Up, let's take one more problem with mixed set of constraints type. Let me just see the problem. Say, उसमें भी पता है एक तरीका यही होता है कि like for example, I'm taking it from your book only. It's a small problem. Say supposing you have to maximize z equal to 8x1 plus 3x2 minus 2x3 subject to x1 minus 6x2 plus x3 more than or equal to 2. Then 5x1 plus 7x2 minus 2x3 equal to minus 4 with चलो इसमें मैं एक थोड़ा सा चेंज कर रही हूँ राइट नाउ. आई एम टेकिंग x1 and x2 to be non-negative but x3 to be unrestricted in sign. Okay. So supposing I have this problem, जिसका dual लिखना है मुझे. ठीक है. Now as I was saying, you know, the best thing is if you don't want to commit mistakes, थोड़ा सा एक्स्ट्रा एफर्ट यहाँ पे डाल दो सो दैट डुअल लिखने में कोई गलती नहीं होगी. अदरवाइज डायरेक्टली भी लिख सकते हैं इसका डुअल, बट उसमें गलती होने के चांसेस होते हैं. ओके, सो द बेस्ट थिंग इज just look at the problem. Okay, now as I was saying, I have been saying this right from the beginning. Convert your problem into maximization less than or equal to types. Okay, number one. Number two, just see what are the nature of the variables. Your variables, one is, of course, I would want all my variables to be non-negative. Okay, now in this particular problem, out of 3, 2 are non-negative, but 1 is unrestricted in sign. Okay, so what I can do is my unrestricted variable x3 I can write as x3 dash minus x3 double dash, जैसे हम solve करते समय लिखते हैं, where x3 dash and x3 double dash both are non-negative. I can always do that, right? Number one, I'll make this change in the problem. See, I'll rewrite my primal first, okay? But I'll just see some basic logic of mathematics, and then we'll rewrite the problem, okay? One of the constraint is also equality types, okay? If I have A is equal to B, does this not imply that A is less than or equal to B and A is more than or equal to B? So that when they are simultaneously satisfied, I have no other choice but they have to be equal, because A cannot be less than B and A cannot be more than B simultaneously. So we are talking of constraints here. So that means every equality can be converted into 2 inequalities of this kind. Okay. So what I do is, instead of this one constraint, I make 2 constraints out of it. One with less than or equal to sign and the other with more than or equal to sign. See, abhi I'm not changing x3 right now. What I am doing is I am writing the problem again simply by converting the equality constraint into 2 inequalities first. So it will be 8x1 plus 3x2 minus 2x3 subject to first constraint I'm writing as more than or equal to only. I'll change it later on. X1 minus 6x2 plus x3 more than or equal to 2. Now the second one I'll write as 5x1 plus 7x2 minus 2x3 less than or equal to minus 4, and 5x1 plus 7x2 minus 2x3 more than or equal to minus 4, where I know my x1, x2 are more than or equal to 0 and x3 is still unrestricted in sign. Is this okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now we'll change the unrestricted variable also, and we'll convert all the inequalities into less than or equal to types. Okay. So that my problem will now become maximize z equal to 8x1 plus 3x2 minus, now see, x3 has to be replaced by now x3 dash minus x3 double dash. Okay, so it will be minus 2x3 dash plus 2x3 double dash. I'll change x3. Okay, now moreover, this equality is more than or equal to types. So if I convert it into less than or equal to types, I have to multiply this whole equation by minus 1. So my first constraint will actually become minus x1 plus 6x2. Now it will be minus x3, which I can write as minus x3 dash plus x3 double dash less than or equal to minus 2. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, second constraint is already less than or equal to types. Okay. So that goes as it is, except that I will change x3 into x3 dash minus x3 double dash. Right. But my third constraint is again more than or equal to types. Right. So I'll have to change it to minus 5x1 minus 7x2. Now it will be plus 2x3. So it will be plus 2x3 dash minus 2x3 double dash less than or equal to 4. And now all my variables, that means x1, x2, x3 dash, x3 double dash, they are all more than or equal to 0 now. Is that fine? Now, of course, I have complicated my things in the sense that I have increased the number of variables also. I have increased the number of constraints also. But that doesn't matter, because when I finally write my dual, I will end up following the rules that I have already mentioned. See, at every stage, do not forget that your primal had 3 variables and 2 constraints, right? So accordingly, your dual should have 3 constraints and 2 variables, right? This is the relationship that has to be followed, and that will be followed. Don't worry, it will be followed definitely. Just see, now I have my maximization problem with all constraints less than or equal to types. So this is my problem, and when I write its dual, definitely it will be minimize capital Z equal to. Now see, I'll have 3 variables, y1, y2, y3, corresponding to these 3 constraints, and the right hand sides are going to define the coefficients there. So I can write it as minus 2y1 minus 4y2 plus 4y3. I can do that, right? That what I should not be saying I can do that. It has to be like this only. Okay. Subject to. Now write all the constraints. Since all the constraints were less than or equal to types, so now you will have all the constraints as more than or equal to types. But now I'll read the constraints column wise, the coefficients column wise. So it will be minus y1 plus 5y2 minus 5y3 more than or equal to 8. Right? What will be the second constraint? 6y1 plus 7y2 minus 7y3 more than or equal to 3. Okay. Now, what will be the next one? Minus y1 minus 2y2 plus 2y3 more than or equal to, what's the coefficient? Minus 2. Yeah. And the last one will be
y1 plus 2y2
y1
minus
plus 2y2
2
minus
minus 2y3 greater than equal to 2.
equal to plus 2. Where I can say that y1, y2, y3 are more than or equal to 0. Is that right? Now see, how many constraints do I want in dual? 3. How many variables? 2. Now see, again, now we'll do our homework. In the primal, I had 3 variables, out of which one was unrestricted in sign. Okay? Definitely, one constraint in the dual will be equality type, corresponding to what? That variable which was unrestricted in sign. Which was the variable which was unrestricted in sign? X3. The third variable was unrestricted in sign. That means the third constraint in the dual will be equality, and that you can see from here. If you just look at the last two equations, I can rewrite these equations as y1 plus 2y2 plus minus 2y3 less than or equal to 2. And the last one is y1 plus 2y2 minus 2y3 more than or equal to 2. Are they not equal?
Yes, ma'am.
Do both these equations imply that y1 plus 2y2 minus 2y3 is equal to 2? That means my third constraint in the dual becomes an equality constraint. Okay, I'll write it again. I'm writing it again and again so that you don't end up committing a mistake. See, that means my problem now is minimize z, capital Z equal to, please read out the coefficients. I have to scroll up and down otherwise.
8x
minus 2y1 minus 4y2 plus 4y3.
Right. Subject to
minus y1 plus 5y2 minus 5y3 greater than equal to 8.
8.
6y1 plus 7y2 minus 7y3 greater than equal to 3.
3?
3, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then last one is this, y1. Now I can write the last constraint as this. Equality types, right? Where still my y1, y2, y3 are more than or equal to 0. Okay. Now, but again, we'll see in my primal, my second constraint was equality types, right? And the second constraint of the primal corresponds to the second variable of the dual. And as a rule, if I have an equality constraint in the primal, then the corresponding variable in the dual should be unrestricted in sign. Okay. Now, in this case, see, one thing is very clear, that I do not have 3 variables in the dual. Actually, I have only 2, right? But since all the 3 variables, the way I have written the dual, are non-negative, definitely 2 of them correspond to a variable which is actually unrestricted in sign. And as you can see from the problems itself, can I not combine these two? Can I not write it as minus 4 y2 minus y3? I can write this as 5 y2 minus y3. I can write this as 7 y2 minus y3. So actually, if I say let y2 minus y3 be some y4 or some y, simply y, then this would imply that y is unrestricted in sign, because I don't know whether y2 is 0 or y3 is 0. So depending upon the value, because y2 and y3 are both non-negative. But if I write y as y2 minus y3, I cannot be sure that y will also be non-negative. But one thing is very clear, that my y will be then unrestricted in sign. And accordingly, I can again rewrite this problem as minimize capital Z equal to minus 2y1 minus 4y. I have replaced y2 minus y3 by y. Subject to, now my constraints are minus y1 plus 5y more than or equal to 8, 6y1 plus 7y more than or equal to 3, and the last constraint will be y1 plus 2 y equal to 2, where y1 more than or equal to 0. And so now if you see, your primal had 3 variables, so your dual has 3 constraints. Your primal had your primal had 2 constraints, that is why your dual has 2 variables. One of the primal constraint was equality types, that is why your one of the dual variable is unrestricted in sign. Similarly, one of the variable in the primal was unrestricted in sign, that is why you have an equality constraint. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Because what I feel is that maybe, yes, you may feel that we are unnecessarily increasing our steps by writing it again and again, but I think increasing number of steps is better than writing the problem wrong. So now I'll just give you a homework. You can try it yourself. Try to write the dual of maximize Z equal to 3x1 plus x2 plus 2x3 minus x4, subject to 2x1 minus x2 plus 3x3 plus x4 equal to 1, x1 plus x2 minus x3 plus x4 equal to 3, x1, x2 more than or equal to 0, x3, x4 unrestricted in sign. Okay? कर लोगे?
Yes, ma'am.
Just try writing the dual for this. Okay, now this is as far as writing the duals is concerned. Okay, but before we move over to finding the solutions and then sort of interpreting the solutions of the dual from the primal, we need to prove certain basic results. Okay. Based on which this theory has been developed. And not just this, we'll also see, depending upon the nature of the solution of the primal, we'll interpret the nature of solutions of the dual also. Okay. So the very first theorem that we end up proving is the very simple fact. So as you can see, you are writing the constraints of the dual from the primal by considering the transpose of the coefficient matrix, and the basic result on transpose of matrices is that A transpose is A. Okay, so that is why this leads to the basic theorem, the very first theorem on duality, which says that, I'll just write it again, that it's actually not a theorem, it's a lemma actually, which states that the dual of dual is primal. Okay, so that means you start with a primal, you write its dual, now you find the dual of that dual. So you will get back your primal problem. Okay, this is what this basic lemma, I've written it as theorem, but it's actually a lemma. But since we have to prove it, so I'll be proving it now. Now it's too simple when you are trying to prove that dual of dual is primal. So what I do is I said, let the given LPP be, say, maximize Z equal to Cx subject to, now I'm not writing A here, I'm writing D, say dx less than or equal to small d with x more than or equal to 0. Let this be your problem. I am numbering it as problem number 1. Okay, so D is the coefficient matrix in the constraints. X are your primal variables. And depending upon the dimensions, the rows of D, you have those many number of constraints. And like we are not bothered about the dimensions here because we know that these products exist and we have already seen the rules. We basically have to prove that dual of dual is primal. Okay. Now, when I straight away write the dual, say I'll say that the dual of this problem number 1 will be, now I go back to those rules only. So my maximization problem will become minimization. Instead of small z, I'm writing capital Z equal to. Now the coefficients come from this D here. But since this D is actually a column matrix, and since I have to write it in the objective function, so I take its transpose and I call the dual variables as, say, W. Is that okay? So my problem, my dual now becomes minimize Z equal to D prime W subject to, now the coefficient will come from the transpose of capital D and it will be this W more than or equal to. Now this C matrix here was actually a row matrix. Okay. So now it has to come in columns. So it will be C prime now with the fact that all my W's are non-negative. This becomes my problem number 2. Is this clear? Now I'm not writing in details. Otherwise, we would have written C equal to C1, C2, Cn and upon and so on and so forth. So I think we can take the liberty now to straight away write them as matrices because we know, in which order is the product defined for that. Okay, now we have to prove that dual of dual is primal. So basically we have to prove that dual of this problem number 2 is the problem number 1. This is what we have to prove. Okay, so not a big deal. We find dual of 2 also. Okay, now this dual of 2 will now be, now since it's a minimization problem, so it will become maximization problem. And instead of this Z, I write as Z star, okay, equal to, now see. Now, instead of, now I have C prime here. So it will be C prime prime and do I bring in another variable? I'm just thinking of that. Okay, let's talk of, say, Y here. Let's bring in Y's. Okay. Subject to, now it will be D prime prime Y less than or equal to D prime prime with Y's more than or equal to 0. I have straight away written this. Okay. But okay, if you don't want to do that, let's do one thing. Isko, just keep it aside. Just look at this one, the problem number 2 itself. Okay, the problem number 2, it's a minimization problem and we have more than or equal to constraints. Okay. Now, as I've been telling you again and again that we prefer converting it to a maximization less than or equal to type problem first. Okay. And then we write the dual. Now, this minimizing Z, I can write as maximizing capital Z star, which is minus of Z. Yahi karte hai na? So it will be nothing but minus of D prime W. Okay. I want all the constraints to be less than or equal to types. So my constraints I can write as D prime W with a negative sign less than or equal to minus C prime and the fact that W is more than or equal to 0. Is this okay now? In the earlier case, I straight away wrote using the rules of duality right from the problem itself. I just wrote the dual, right? If you don't want to do this, if it's confusing to you, forget about it right now. Let's go back to our own rule that we had learned. Okay. So I have converted the minimization problem again into a maximization problem. Okay. So this is now my dual, for which I have to find the dual again. Okay, and prove that that dual is equal to the primal. Okay, so now I write the dual. So the dual will now be, again, it will be a minimization problem. I write it as small z star, okay, equal to, this will be minus c prime prime. Want to call it x or y? Let's call them x again. Subject to minus d prime prime x more than or equal to minus of d prime prime with x more than or equal to 0. Okay, that means basically this is nothing but minimize z star equal to minus cx subject to minus dx more than or equal to minus d, x more than or equal to 0. Why? Because c prime prime, prime here stands for the transpose of this matrix. So c transpose transpose is c, d transpose transpose is capital D, small d transpose transpose is small d. So basically I get this, which again it's a minimization problem. I can convert it into a maximization problem, call it as, say, z equal to cx subject to dx less than or equal to d, x more than or equal to 0, which is same as your problem number 1. Is this clear? So basically primal, dual of a dual is the primal itself. So if you start with the primal, you find its dual twice, you get back to the same primal again. Okay. Now, once, as I have been saying again and again, we need not solve both of the problems simultaneously. If we solve one problem, we can find the solution of the other. Okay. That means it's like, you know, it's like you in a graph also, say graphically, if you just see, imagine just two variables and so many number of constraints, you have a maximization problem. So if you have a maximization problem, your feasible region is something like this, you know, is tarah ka banta hai na kuch something, say this is the second constraint, this is the third constraint. So supposing your feasible region is this in a maximization problem. So what happens is when we follow the simplex method in a maximization problem, we are moving from the solution 0, 0 towards the higher values of the objective function till we reach a maximum. Okay. Now, when we have the dual of this, the whole problem, the maximization problem is converted into a minimization problem. So it's like you have one feasible region here, you have another feasible region somewhere here. So what happens is that in one process, you are moving from lower to high. Both the processes, you are improving the solutions, right? But in one case, you are moving in this direction. In the other case, you will be moving in this direction. Okay. So that you reach an objective, you reach an optimal where both of them coincide, you know, maybe at one point. So that point becomes the optimal solution for both the primal as well as for the dual. But when you are moving, when you are performing simplex iterations, so basically you are moving from one basic feasible solution, say of the primal, to another. Similarly, when you are solving a dual separately, you are moving from one feasible solution to another basic feasible solution. At every stage, the value of z's are different because you have actually a different problem, right? But still, we have a theorem that we can say there is a relationship between the solutions at every stage of the simplex iterations. In fact, this theorem states that, I'm calling it as the theorem 2, though some books call it as the weak duality theorem. Some books call it just, any lemma or something. But this states that if X is a feasible solution of the primal problem, and W is a feasible solution of the dual problem, then Cx is always less than or equal to d prime W. Okay, that means what? Cx was what? Cx is the objective function of the primal. D prime W is the objective function of the dual. So this basically implies that the objective function value at every stage, you see, we are talking of feasible solutions only. I've not talked of basic feasible solution right now, but it says that the objective function value of the primal will always be less than or equal to the objective function value of the dual. So this means what? This means the feasible region of the primal is always going to be bounded above by the feasible region of the dual, because the objective function value is going to be always less than or equal to is always going to be less than or equal to that of dual. So that's what I said here. If this is the feasible region of the primal, your feasible region of the dual will lie somewhere here above that. So that whenever you find an objective function value for the primal, it will always be less than or equal to that of the dual. Okay. So this, if you solve problems like, I'll give you an example, problem to solve. You take up any problem, you write the primal, you take it as the primal, you write the dual, solve the primal separately, solve the dual separately, and then compare the simplex iterations. You will see for yourself that at every stage this is happening. So that is because of this particular theorem. And in fact, the moment we have less than or equal to here, that means there will come a stage when both of them will be equal, and that will be the optimal solution. And that will happen at one basic feasible solution. That means you will have one basic feasible solution where the value of the objective function for the primal will be same as that of the dual. So that will be your optimal solution for both the problems, the primal as well as the dual. Okay. Now let us first of all prove this theorem, and then we'll move over to the other results that I have been speaking about right now. Okay. Now to prove this, again, we say let the primal problem be maximize z equal to cx subject to dx less than or equal to dx more than or equal to 0. Okay. Then we have seen that the dual will be minimize capital Z equal to d prime w subject to d prime w more than or equal to c prime w more than or equal to 0. Okay. I say now see, we are given that x is a feasible solution of the primal. This we are given. If this is what the statement says, that if x is a feasible solution, so we are given that x is a feasible solution of the primal, and we are given that w is a feasible solution of the dual. Okay. Now, since they are both feasible solutions, that means they satisfy the constraints as well as the non-negativity restrictions. So basically, this implies that dx is less than or equal to dx more than or equal to 0, and d prime w is more than or equal to c prime with w more than or equal to 0. and just number these equations as 1 and 2. Now see, just look at this first equation. It says dx is less than or equal to d. That means if I pre-multiply both these equations by w prime, this means that w prime dx is less than or equal to w prime d. Is that okay? I've pre-multiplied by w prime both the sides. This I can write as d prime w. Just basic knowledge of matrices that we are using here. Okay. Similarly, look at the second equation. It says d prime w more than or equal to c prime. I pre-multiply by x prime. Okay. So I have x prime d prime w more than or equal to x prime c prime. Okay. Now this implies x prime d prime w prime will also be more than or equal to x prime c prime prime, which is actually nothing but cx. Okay. And this will mean x prime d prime w is nothing but w prime dx is more than or equal to cx. Okay. And I can rewrite this as cx is less than or equal to w prime dx, but from this equation I have w prime dx is equal to d prime w. Okay, so which means what? Cx is less than or equal to d prime w. This is what we were to prove, that the objective function value of the primal will always be less than or equal to objective function value of the dual. So basically this amounts to saying that your z will always be less than or equal to capital Z at every iteration. When you solve both the problems separately, you will compare and you will see that the values of the primal are always less than or equal to that of the dual till you reach optimality. Okay. So this was the second result that we were to prove. Now before and now the question is that when do we conclude that both of them have an optimal solution? When will they be equal? And when can we say that, okay, this is, I mean, when do we end and how? See, obviously, again, I'm emphasizing we will not solve both the problems. We will solve only one problem. So that means if I start with solving the primal and I end up with an optimal table of the primal, that means that optimal table itself should give me the optimal solution for the primal as well as for the dual. That means we have reached a stage where, you know, where we have reached a stage, matlab, we have reached at one feasible solution or one basic feasible solution, which is giving me an optimal value for both the problems. That means that solution, I mean, the iteration at which we are getting that solution is the iteration where all the optimality criteria of the simplex method are being satisfied. Okay, so for that we have two more results. That means number one, we'll prove that if, I mean, how do we conclude that? So first of all, we'll prove, which is called as the fundamental theorem of duality. It says that if the primal problem has an optimal solution, then the dual problem will also have an optimal solution. So that guarantees. Okay, so if the primal has an optimal solution, dual will definitely have an optimal solution. We need not bother about that. So we just solve the primal, see the optimality criteria. If I have an optimal solution, I can conclude that dual also has a solution, and then I'll find the solution. Okay, how? That we'll come to it later on. But number one, so once that means now we have two more things to prove. Firstly, we'll prove that if the primal has an optimal solution, then the dual also has an optimal solution. Then we'll prove that if X star, one particular solution, X star, is a feasible solution of the primal problem, and W star is another feasible solution of the dual problem. And it so happens that the objective function value for both of them are equal. See, in this theorem, we'll move after this, we'll move to that. In this theorem, the one that we just proved, in this we have proved that the primal objective value will always be less than or equal to the dual objective value. But what if they are equal? So that means we can come across a solution where X star, W star, X star for the primal, W star for the dual, where both the objective function values are equal. So if those values are equal, then the corresponding solutions are the optimal solutions. That means wherever the objective function values for both of them become equal, that becomes the optimal solution for the primal as well as for the dual. And then we'll prove that if the primal has an optimal solution, then the dual will also have an optimal solution. So that means we need not solve the dual separately. See, abhi tak hum kya kar rahe hain? We are solving the two problems separately, and then we are comparing them. Okay, so at the first, that's why we call it as the weak duality theorem. कि अभी तक हमें सिर्फ इतना पता लगा that the objective function value of the primal is always going to be less than or equal to that of the dual. So we know that dual somewhere is serving as the upper bound and primal is somewhere in below that. Okay. उसके बाद हमने एक और theorem prove करी जिसको हम some books call it as the strong duality theorem, जिसमें उसने ये कहा कि अगर if both the values become equal, then that is an optimal solution. Fine. That also agreed, acceptable. But then still we are at a stage where we are solving the two problems separately. तो हमें फायदा क्या हुआ, right? We need to reduce our efforts. So then comes the fundamental theorem of duality, which says that if the problem has an optimal solution, primal has an optimal solution, dual will definitely have an optimal solution. So that becomes the breakthrough. Okay, let us not solve both the problems. We'll solve only one and then find the solutions. Is this clear? I mean, I'm just trying to explain the logic first of all, then we'll come to the mathematical proofs. But is the logic clear to you or not? Because अगर logic समझ में आ गया तो theorem रटनी नहीं पड़ेगी, वो अपने आप समझ में आ जाएगी. हाँ? बोलो.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's do both the proofs and then we'll see how to read the solutions, okay, from one to the other. चलें आगे? Okay, this will be your theorem 2 of duality. I'm calling it theorems only. Your book call it as a lemma. Some books call this as the strong duality theorem. It says that if X star is a feasible solution of the primal problem, and W star is a feasible solution of the dual problem. That means both the problems have a feasible solution, and it so happens that the objective function values at these two feasible solutions are equal, okay, such that Cx star is equal to d prime w. Then the result says that X star is an optimal solution of the primal and W star is an optimal solution of the dual. problem. Okay. So basically this means that wherever the objective function values equal for both of them, that becomes the optimal, respective optimal solutions for both the problems. Okay. So to prove this again, I say it's a very simple proof. I mean, these proofs are not very tough. Let the primal be maximize z equal to cx subject to dx less than or equal to dx more than or equal to 0. Now again, I mean, this is the repetition. So dual will be minimize capital Z equal to d prime w subject to capital D prime w more than or equal to c prime w more than or equal to 0. Okay, so these are my primals and the dual problem. Okay, so I say let x star be a feasible solution of the primal. Okay, now see, what I'm doing now is I'm starting with a x star as a feasible solution of the primal, and let w be, not w star, I'm taking w be any feasible solution of the dual. Why I'm doing that, I'll just explain. अभी आगे देखते हैं, ठीक है? I've started with x star, but instead of w star, I have taken w here because we need to use the condition that cx star is equal to d prime w star. Okay. Now, if x star is a feasible solution of the primal and w is any feasible solution of the dual, then by the theorem that we just proved, which we've been calling as the weak duality theorem, I'm writing it as WDT, weak duality theorem, Cx star will always be less than or equal to d prime w. ये हमने prove किया अभी कि any feasible solution of the primal will always be less than or equal to the objective value of the dual at any stage. Okay, so Cx star is less than or equal to d prime w, but we are given that Cx star is equal to d prime w star. This is given to us. Okay, that's why I took a w here, because I needed to differentiate between the two. So Cx star is equal to d prime w star. So basically both these inequalities imply that d prime w star is less than or equal to d prime w. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now see, your primal was a maximization problem, right? So your dual becomes a minimization problem. Okay. So that means you have reached a stage where you have a solution w star where the objective function value of the dual at w star is less than the objective function of value of the dual at w. See, w, right now I am considering w and w star as two separate solutions. Okay, so w is one feasible solution, w star is another feasible solution, and I have reached a stage where I am concluding that the objective function value of the dual at w star is less than or equal to the objective function value of the dual at w. And since my dual was a minimization problem, that means w star serves as an improvement on w. So that means I can conclude that yes, that if I've ended up at this stage, I can say that w star is an optimal solution of the dual. Okay, because it is an improvement on w. So it's not just, I have not just found one solution, I have found a solution where the objective function value has improved, and I can treat it as an optimal solution of the dual. Okay. Now I'll just retain this statement here. Okay. Why? Because we'll be doing the same the other way around also. So I've reached a stage where W star is an optimal solution of the dual. Okay. Let now W star be a feasible solution of the dual and X be any feasible solution of the primal. जिससे पहले हम उल्टा चले थे. In the earlier case, what did we do? We started with X star as a feasible solution of the primal and W as any solution of the dual. Now I'm doing the other way around. I'm starting with the W star as a feasible solution of the dual and X as any feasible solution of the primal. Then again, by the weak duality theorem, we are going to have Cx less than or equal to D prime W star. But again, D prime W star is equal to Cx star. Okay. So what will we conclude? That means Cx is less than or equal to Cx star. Okay. And since your primal was a maximization problem, that means you have obtained a solution where objective value is greater than that at X. So that means we can say that X star is an optimal solution of the primal. Okay. So that means whether we have X star or we have W star, they will become the optimal solution of the primal and the dual, provided we have Cx star is equal to D prime W star. This is required. So wherever these values are equal, wherever the objective function values are equal, they become the optimal solutions for the primal as well as the dual. Okay. So this proves your strong duality theorem that we just stated. Now comes the most important, which is the fundamental theorem of duality. I'll write it as FDT. This was the strong duality theorem, SDT. That was the earlier one, was the weak duality theorem. Now this theorem states that this is actually theorem 6.1 of your book. You know, before that, there are all three lemmas that are going to be used here. Okay. Now this theorem states that if the primal problem has an optimal solution, then the dual problem will also have an optimal solution. Okay, so this theorem basically guarantees the existence of the optimal solution for both the problems, primal as well as the dual. Okay, so if the primal has an optimal solution, dual also has an optimal solution. और वो optimal solution होगा कौन सा? जहाँ पे दोनों का objective function value equal होगा. वो क्या होगा? X star and W star. तो अगर हमने problems primal solve किया, right? So that means if I end up with some optimal solution of the primal, तो वो तो वहां पे आ गया ना उसका optimal, और वहीं पे ही dual का भी optimal है. तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? The objective function values are equal. It's just that the solutions have to be read now. See, I'm not saying that the solution will also be same. No, because your variables are different. But what I am saying is that the objective function values for both the primal as well as the duals, they will be equal. But the solutions will be different. See, for primal, they'll be the values of X. For dual, they'll be the values of W or Y or whatever we have been calling those variables as. Okay, so they have to be read in a different manner. Kaise? We'll learn that also. Don't worry about that. We'll learn that also. And because of this, you know, because the way we are going to learn the solutions of the dual, you will realize that this concept of duality has its own economic significance. So we do sensitivity analysis because of the duality. Okay, अब sensitivity analysis का भी मतलब क्या होता है? Sensitivity analysis का मतलब ये हुआ, see, अब हमने जैसे अगर हम अपनी उसी प्रॉब्लम पे जाएं कि हम we were making books, table, chairs and bookshelves, right? अब एक सिचुएशन पे तो हमको डिसीजन मेकर ने अपना सिचुएशन दिया, हमने उसको सॉल्व करके बता दिया कि ये प्रॉफिट आपका रहेगा मैक्सिमाइज प्रोवाइडेड यू मैन्युफैक्चर these many chairs, these many tables and these many bookshelves. But then the market is volatile. You know, the cost of raw material is not going to be the same every time. Every time the revenue earned because of the chairs and tables is not going to be the same. It will vary. So the question that the decision maker now has is ki, up till what variation do I keep on manufacturing the same amount of books, chairs and chair, tables and bookshelves? Because a stage might come कि जहाँ पे मेरा raw material इतना महंगा हो गया कि शायद ये नंबर वायबल ही ना रहे मुझे रेवेन्यू मैक्सिमाइज करने के लिए. So in that case, I have to change my decision. But every time, every second day, the decision maker cannot come to me with his problem कि आज बताओ आज मैं कितना प्रोड्यूस करूं या आज मेरे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कितना होना चाहिए. So for that, we give them a range, you know, and we call that as sensitivity analysis. You know, कि कितना एक resource अगर इतना variation रखता है, then this particular solution will still give you the maximum revenue. But if it violates this range, then the revenue will change. So then you have to rethink. Okay. So that is what is called as the sensitivity analysis. So we'll come to that also, don't worry. But before that, let us prove this result, this theorem, the fundamental theorem of duality. Okay. So again, I say, let the primal be same set, maximize z equal to cx subject to dx less than or equal to dx more than or equal to 0. And we'll write the dual again, which will be minimize capital Z equal to d prime w subject to d prime w more than or equal to c prime w more than or equal to 0. Okay. Now, what I do is I rewrite this primal. What I do is I separate out the slack, surplus and everything. See, your x in your primal consists of all the variables. ना उसमें हमारे डिसीजन वेरिएबल्स भी हैं, उसमें हमारे स्लैक वेरिएबल्स भी हैं, सरप्लस भी हैं और आर्टिफिशियल भी, right? So what I do is basically I separate out the initial basic variables or the basic variables at every stage because their corresponding coefficient matrix is going to be the identity matrix. Okay. So what I do is I rewrite the problem primal as, I say primal can be written as maximize. अभी मैं इसको, okay, let us understand this, subject to dx plus ixs equal to d. Okay, अब इसमें देख लो dx तो हमारे ओरिजिनल थे because in your primal you had dx less than or equal to d. Okay, so that means we had all less than or equal to type constraints. So that means we are introducing only the slack variables to convert them into equality, and the slack variables will become your initial basic feasible solutions. And that is why the coefficients, when you introduce the slack variables in all the constraints here, will become the identity matrix. Okay, so I rewrite the constraints as dx plus ixs equal to d, where my all decision as well as the slack variables are non-negative in nature, more than or equal to 0. Okay, so if you want, you can say that where xs are the slack variables लिख सकते हैं हम इसको ऐसे, ठीक है. Now I say let x star be an optimal solution of the primal. Okay, I start with an optimal solution of the primal. I'm calling that as my x star. Okay, then I write x star as the set of basic variables and the non-basic variables. Okay, and non-basic variables are all zeros, so I have basic variables where I say that B is a basis matrix and X, B are the basic variables. Is this clear? I mean, I don't think till now you should have any problem. Okay. Now, since I have assumed that X star is an optimal solution, that means at this stage, all my Zj minus Cjs in the table, in the simplex iterations, are more than or equal to 0 because I have reached optimality. ठीक है ना? So that means I'm talking of a solution at a stage where I'm saying that it is an optimal solution. So definitely corresponding to that optimal solution, my simplex table is the optimal table. I mean, there is no other improvement possible. Okay, so that becomes my final iteration. That becomes my optimal simplex table. And definitely at that optimal simplex table, the values of all Zj minus Cjs will be more than or equal to 0. Okay. So this is where I will reach because I have reached optimality there. Okay. So now since all Zj minus Cjs are more than or equal to 0, what I do is I take another column and I call that as small dj, and I say let this dj with j from 1 to r be the columns of the matrix D that we started with. Okay. This means now since Zj minus Cjs, now I'm going back to the earlier notations that we used in proving the theory of simplex method. So Zj minus Cj more than or equal to 0 would imply, what was this Zj? Cb B inverse Dj. So basically this implies that Cb B inverse Dj minus Cjs will be more than or equal to 0. And this will happen for every j from 1 to r. Okay. That means what? That means Cb B inverse Dj is more than or equal to Cj for every j 1 to r. That means what? Cb B inverse. Now this Dj I write as D1, D2, Dr, and this will be more than or equal to C1, C2, Cr. I'm writing it like this. Okay. Now these dj's were all the columns of D. So basically this means that Cb B inverse D is more than or equal to C. Okay. Now I say let Cb B inverse be W prime. Okay. So this will imply that W prime D is more than or equal to C, or which means that D prime W is less than or equal to C prime. Okay. Now, that means what? This W satisfies the constraints of the dual. that means what? That means W is a solution of the dual. Okay. Now this is for the matrix corresponding to D. This is what I started with. Okay. Now let's come to the slack variables. Okay. Now see why we are handling them separately, because for the slack variables in the primal, the corresponding coefficients in the objective function are 0. Okay, so that basically this matrix D actually consists of the coefficients of the decision variables, and plus we have another matrix which consists of the coefficients of the slack variables. Okay, so I say now see, because we had reached optimality, so that means for the slack variables as well, for the slack variables also, my Zj minus Cj's is more than or equal to 0 and Cj is equal to 0, because ये तो हमने प्रॉब्लम ही ऐसे कंस्ट्रक्ट करते हैं. ठीक है. So basically this means what? Up, see, for your slack variables, or for your basically the original, your matrix was what? I, corresponding to the slack variables. That means corresponding to the first slack variable, the entries are 1, 0, 0, which is actually nothing but your E1, the standard norm, the standard basis. Okay. Similarly, for the entries corresponding to the second slack variable were 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, so on. So that means what you the columns can be identified as E1, E2, E whatever, depending upon the number of slack variables we have. So basically what have we done is we have D, D1, D2, DR, then we have E1, E2 and so on and so forth. So the ones corresponding to E1 is your I, and you have D with you. Okay, so that is why we had separated it out. So that is why when I say Zj minus Cj is more than or equal to 0 and Cj is equal to 0, so that means this term becomes 0. So I can write it as, and your Zj was what? Cb V inverse Dj hona chahiye tha, which will be nothing but Ei now. Okay, because 1, 0, 0 aate na, minus 0 is more than or equal to 0. Okay, so if you want, you can write down here where Ei is the ith column of the identity matrix. Okay, now the moment we have this, this means that CB B inverse into E1, E2, so on. कितने ले लें से? Supposing we had S number of slack variables. This is more than or equal to 0, which implies what? CB B inverse I is more than or equal to 0. Okay. But CB B inverse हमने क्या बोला हुआ है? W prime. So that means what? W prime is more than or equal to 0. Okay. So हमने क्या पहले prove किया? We proved that we proved that W is a solution of the dual, and now we are proving that W is not just a solution. Till this case it was only satisfying the constraints, but now since W prime is more than or equal to 0, which means that W is also more than or equal to 0. So basically it is not only satisfying the constraints, it is also satisfying the non-negativity restrictions also. Okay, so this amounts to saying that W is a not just a solution, it is a feasible solution of the dual, because it is satisfying the constraints as well as the non-negativity restrictions. Okay. Now we come back to the objective function value of the primal, okay, and we say that the objective function value of the primal at x star will be given by, let's call it as z star, which is actually nothing but cx star, which we know is nothing but cbxb and this will be nothing but CB B inverse D. यही निकालते हैं हम, right? This is how we find. That's what I'm saying. I'm coming back to the notations that we used in the beginning when we were deriving these, when we were developing the theory of simplex method. Okay, so we have this. Similarly, I can say that the objective function value of the dual at, say, W star will be, say, capital Z star, which is nothing but D prime, W star ही कह दो इसको, which is actually nothing but W star prime D, which is again nothing but CB B inverse D. Okay, तो ये भी CB B inverse D आ गया, ये भी CB B inverse D आ गया. So which implies that Z star is equal to capital Z star. Okay, so basically we have proved that the objective function values of both the primal as well as the dual are going to be equal once you reach optimality of one. Okay, we started with an optimal solution of the primal, and we have proved till now, we have also proved that the optimal solution, the situation at which we arrive at an optimal solution of the primal, gives us a solution of the dual, which is also giving me a solution of the dual where the objective function values of both are equal. Okay, so we can say that, that means we can say here that X star is an optimal solution of the primal and W prime was a feasible solution of the dual. Okay, and by weak duality, by strong duality theorem, W dash will also be an optimal solution of the dual. See, अभी मैं फिर से समझाती हूँ, just write it down. So therefore we can say that, therefore by the strong duality theorem, W prime is also an optimal solution of the dual, and W prime is nothing but CB B inverse. यही आ रहा है हमारे पास भी. See, what have we proved? I mean, the steps that we have followed in this proof is, number one, we started with an optimal solution of the primal. Okay? We reached a stage where that optimal solution of the primal gave us a feasible solution of the dual, right? And because of the, and not just gave us a feasible solution of the dual, we also got the fact that at that particular situation, both the objective function values are equal, number one. And secondly, because we had obtained a feasible solution of the dual, and because of the strong duality theorem, it has to be an optimal solution of the dual because both the objective function values were equal at that situation. So that is why we can say that if the primal has an optimal solution, dual also has an optimal solution. And the optimality table, or the optimal table, the final table where optimality criteria is being met with, that remains the same for both. Is this clear? Bolo? G, are you all here or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I am actually trying to wind up, but since I want you to try out problems, that's why I'm giving you one problem. Okay, now this is a homework for you all. I'm giving you a problem. and I'll just let you know what is to be done here, because then the next part you will do. Oh, wait a minute. I again have to do this. Now write down this problem. I'll tell you what all you have to do. Okay. The problem is maximize z equal to 3x1 plus 4x2 plus x3 subject to x1 plus 2x2 plus 3x3 less than or equal to 90, 2x1 plus x2 plus x3 less than or equal to 60, 3x1 plus x2 plus 2x3 less than or equal to 80, with x1, x2, x3 more than or equal to 0. Now, have you noted down this problem? Now, what you have to do is, number 1, write the dual. Not a big deal, you'll be able to do. Number 2, solve both the primal and the dual separately. Okay? Separately. That means you solve the primal as it is, not a big deal. When you have written down the dual, solve the dual also. Okay? By using the simplex method only. Right? Now what you will have is, you will have a set of iterations for one problem, you will have set of iterations for the other problem. Okay? Now in the next class, then we'll compare the two and then see how the solutions can be read for each other. Is this okay?
Okay, ma'am.